Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of compelling sources, or today, one incredibly rich and detailed one, and extract the nuggets of knowledge you need.
And today's source is really something.
It is. You are about to meet one of the most dynamic, driven protagonists we've encountered, a young woman named Fenfang.
It's an absorbing narrative structured as 20 intensely personal fragments that chronicle about a decade of her life. And Fenfang's journey, it begins with this really stunning declaration. She states quite plainly that her youth began when she was 21.
21. That sounds like a late start to life.
It does, but she has this rationale that it cuts to the quick of modern Chinese societal pressure.
Okay.
She was absolutely determined to skip the fate of what she calls the average dumb Chinese peasant who leaps straight from childhood to middle age with nothing in between.
Wow. So she's not just leaving, she's trying to skip an entire phase of life she sees as inevitable for people like her.
Exactly. Her mission was crystal clear. Escape, succeed, and, crucially, find those elusive, highly desirable, shiny things in life, making sure some of them were earmarked just for her.
And that's our mission today, isn't it? To
Yeah.
unpack this constant, often bruising tension that defines her existence.
It is, because on one side, you have her humble rural roots, a life she views as suffocating and, well, primitive.
And on the other,
The chaotic, exhilarating, often profoundly cynical push of modern life in Beijing.
right.
And Fenfeng's anecdotes, they're far from being just personal stories. They really function as these precise little micro stories that illustrate the massive cultural and societal transformations happening across China at, the turn of the millennium.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start where she started, the place she was running from. So this idea of rural stagnation, tell us about that.
We begin with what she calls just that, the rural stagnation. It's detailed so powerfully in Fragment 7. Her home was Ginger Hill Village, Yellow Rock Council in Zhejiang province.
Wow.
And she dismisses it immediately. She calls it a nothing place that won't be found on any map of China, which just emphasizes its utter insignificance in the grand scheme of this rising nation.
And what defined that insignificance for her? What was the feeling on the ground?
It was the psychological landscape of her home. She describes it as a house of silence.
A house of silence.
Yeah. Her parents never talked to each other, they never talked to her grandmother, and they certainly never talked to her.
And that kind of silence, it's not peaceful, is it? It's something else.
No, that silence is critical. It's not peace, it's stagnation. It implies a lack of any shared narrative, a life so predictable and constrained that there was, nothing meaningful left to discuss.
And the environment itself reflected that.
It did, completely. The primary visual symbol of this life was the vast, endless sweet potato fields that surrounded the village.
Sweet potato metaphor. That's so powerful. It represents a life that's sort of rooted, fixed underground.
Exactly. She saw her family and her neighbors living like insects, like worms, like slugs hanging on the back door of the house.
That's brutal.
It is. These sweet potato fields symbolized a predictable, unchanging cycle of labor and survival that had absolutely no room for ambition or change. It was a predetermined fate she just had to break.
So she needs a push, a catalyst for flight.
And she finds it in the most unlikely place. The constant, almost conversational noise of the river behind their house.
The river.
It gurgled constantly, making a sound that she said pulled at her. It acted as the only thing that really talked to her in that silent house.
So the river was everything the village wasn't.
Everything. It was movement, flow, the great unknown. It represented the world outside, a magical, far-off place close to heaven, she imagined, that people from her village could just never reach.
The opposite of a sweet potato.
The absolute antithesis, and this sense of fatalistic despair, it drove her to action. She left at 17, fleeing the absolute terror that she would die exactly like her ancestors.
Then how did she see their deaths?
Her description is just haunting. She says they chose a day to die and died as if they had never lived.
Wow.
They died like an ant dies. Who gives a damn when an ant dies? She was running from anonymity, from a life where her very existence was just frozen, trapped in a photo frame with no possibility of movement.
So she escapes this profound silence, this rural oblivion. And 4 years later, she's in Beijing, ready to define herself. Which brings us to Fragment 1.
Yes, the pivotal moment of her cinematic ambition.
At 21, right?
At 21. She finds herself in Beijing filling out an extra registration form at the Beijing Film Studios. She's there on a boiling hot afternoon, and the setting itself, it just beautifully illustrates the city's awkward transition between the communist past and the commercial future.
How so?
The walls of the recruitment office were still covered in these heavy, idealistic Chairman Mao slogans, serve the people.
Right, that classic propaganda.
But then, contrasting sharply with that grand socialist message, you have the shabby reality of the bureaucrat in charge.
Oh, okay. We're told about green-headed flies buzzing over a forgotten lunchbox, and the dozing supervisor, the supposed hero of the people, who only came to life to swing a fly swatter.
To swat flies.
To swat flies.
Yeah.
Killing two with this definitive, indifferent, bam, one fly, bam, a second. It's the banality of power in the new era.
So she fills out this form. What does it tell us about her?
The extra registration form gives us the only concrete pre-Beijing facts we have. Born 1980, Ginger Hill Village. Education, middle school graduate.
And her class status is on there too?
Crucially, yes. Her parents' class status is listed as peasant, non-communist. Her zodiac sign was the monkey. This is her official, recorded identity, the one she is trying so desperately to shed.
And what about her skills? The list she provides is, well, it's fascinating.
It is. It shows this piecemeal, desperate economy of her survival up to that point. She lists level 2 English, typing, and then this intensely specific skill.
The tin cans.
Fabrication of tin cans, 5 cans in 45 seconds.
What do you even make of a skill like that? It speaks volumes, doesn't it? It speaks about the early, grueling jobs we'll discuss in a moment. It's a mechanical skill, a measurable, replicable, factory floor output. The absolute opposite of creative ambition.
But she's already dreaming bigger.
Oh, yeah. She also lists her hobbies as watching Hollywood films and reading translated Western novels, so she's physically tethered to the factory floor, but mentally she's already consuming the outside world she wants to conquer.
And this is where the old world kind of refuses to let go.
Yeah.
The supervisor doesn't assess her acting potential.
No, not at all. Instead, he studies her face based on traditional Chinese physiognomy.
Fortune-telling, basically.
Exactly. Fortune-telling via facial features. It's this classic example of cultural collision. In a modern bureaucratic setting, her success is judged by ancient superstition.
So what does he see?
He compliments her forehead, saying it's nearly as broad as Tiananmen Square, a massive symbolic space of state power. He notes her square jaw, which signifies good fortune and persistence.
And her earlobes.
And yes, the observation that her fat earlobes are lucky like Muda's. He then concludes this whole profound assessment with the backhanded compliment, "You're not that ugly."
What's fascinating here is that he's validating her ambition, but he's using the very traditional framework she's trying to escape.
Precisely. She's validated not by modern talent, but by preordained physical luck. She pays the 15 yuan registration fee and receives her official identity, extra nom 6787.
6787. And that number, it becomes her new metric for success.
It does. She immediately quantifies the competition. 6,786 others stood between her and a meaningful role. But instead of being daunted, she looks at that figure and compares it to the vastness of China.
And her reaction is what?
Pure aggressive ambition, almost hubris. She rationalizes, "It was only the population of my village. I felt an urge to conquer this new village."
So she takes a known, manageable fear, the size of her village, and just projects it onto this unknown challenge. It's a moment of just utter self-belief.
It really is. And that number is truly the point of no return for her. She walks out of that office nearly fainting from the heat and the ubiquitous Beijing dust, but she has her number, her identity.
And she makes a vow.
She vows she will never again live like a forgotten sweet potato under the dark soil. Never. She has acquired a bureaucratic identity to replace the peasant identity she rejected.
Okay, let's move to those crucial, brutal years in Beijing before the film world even became a real possibility. This starts with her traumatic arrival.
Yes, at age 17, detailed in Fragment 2.
And she arrives with these simple, almost naive expectations, right?
Absolutely. Thinking that drinking an ice-cold can of Coke represented the pinnacle of urban life, the reality is immediately harsh.
She's an undocumented migrant.
A peasant. No hotels will take her in. She ends up in the east of the city, near Beiheiyan, one of the historic hutong areas.
For those who don't know, the hutongs are those ancient narrow alleys and courtyards.
Exactly. They represent the pre-modern capital, and they're often these contested spaces where traditional life just bumps up against rapid modernization.
And she's not impressed.
Not at all. Fenfang observes that the people living there, the citizens of the emperor, didn't look noble or particularly civilized to her.
And this is where the story shifts from just observation to absolute shocking tragedy.
It really does. She's sitting by the road, starving, having just bought a baked potato, finding this small moment of comfort. And through an open window, she witnesses a loud, vehement argument between a mother and daughter.
And this is a huge contrast to her own home.
A stark emotional contrast. It's so loud and expressive compared to the deep, decades-long silence of her own home in the sweet potato field.
But the chaos escalates instantly.
Instantly, the daughter runs out, the mother chases her, and they both jump into the road right in front of a hurtling van.
And they're just gone.
Instantly crushed. And in that same moment, Fenfang's baked potato is destroyed beneath the wheels. It's a total abrupt erasure of both life and her small comfort.
What happens next is just chilling.
It's the most cold, bureaucratic removal of life you can imagine. The driver simply pulls the bodies into the back of the van and drives off. Without a word, without even looking at Fenfang, the sole witness.
The van just disappears into the city's indifferent sprawl.
Exactly.
So she's left there paralyzed. But her survival instinct kicks in.
That tenacious refusal to be a sweet potato, right? After half an hour, she realizes the house door is still open. She walks in.
And she finds warmth.
Residual warmth. A warm cup of green tea on the table, the coal weakly burning in the oven. The warmth left by the victims is what sustains her. She chooses the narrow bed, guessing it was the daughter's, and she sleeps there.
Which leads to the most incredible detail of her early survival.
She stayed in that house for a whole month, an uninvited guest benefiting from the sudden, violent void left by their deaths. It's a profound moment that illustrates how Beijing demands you be resourceful, even if that means inhabiting the ghost of a tragedy.
So after leaving that house, her early career drift is just a series of these low-status, exhausting jobs.
Yeah, she notes that in the 4 years since she left Ginger Hill Village, she felt like a spare chair forgotten in the dark corner of a warehouse, just unseen and unused.
The first job was a cleaner.
At the day-to-day people's hostel, but she was restricted to cleaning only the toilets and corridors, the least public, most intimate and disgusting parts of the building. She endured that for a year.
And then a factory job.
A state-run toy factory making plastic guns and aeroplanes. She worked alongside 5,000 other women, enduring the constant noise, the smell of plastic, the stifling communal dormitory.
Which was followed by the tin can monitoring job.
The one that gave her that highly specific, measurable skill for her film studio application. These were all dehumanizing tasks, demanding physical presence but absolutely no ambition.
But her luck shifts at her final menial job, the cinema.
The Young Pioneers Cinema, cleaner and usherette. The cinema only showed low-budget Hong Kong martial arts movies.
Now this job, while still menial, had some unexpected perks.
It did. Fenfang had to sweep up this truly bizarre array of urban refuse. Sugarcane peels, half-eaten chicken legs, peanut shells.
Fried frogs, I think she mentions.
Even fried frogs. It's this surreal catalog of the city's discarded consumption.
But the real perks were substantial.
Very. She slept on a broken sofa in the projection room, escaping the noise of the dormitories, and she got to watch movies all day long. That exposure was a crucial part of her re-education.
And then the discovery that became her intellectual passport.
An English dictionary left forgotten under a seat.
Right. And she remembers the story of the Shanghai student who got into Harvard.
By reciting the entire dictionary off by heart, she saw that dictionary as her own ticket out, the key to unlocking the civilized world.
Did she stick with it?
She started learning the words, but she admits her ambition flagged eventually because, as she says, it got boring after a while.
Which shows her pragmatic, impatient nature. She wants shortcuts, immediate results.
A very modern Beijing trait, rather than the slow generational effort of the past.
But the real stroke of fate, the one that paid off, came from a chance encounter.
The assistant film director, a scrawny man with a sharp haircut. She met him because she helped him find his lost yellow umbrella.
The yellow umbrella.
That umbrella, she notes, was a pathetic gift from an ex-girlfriend who had since moved on to the economic boomtown of Shenzhen. It was this object imbued with failure and cheap sentimentality.
But Fenfang returns it.
She returns this crappy old umbrella and gives him every possible contact number she had, ID number, cinema number, mobile number, home number. And because of that, he gave her the crucial information.
The key wasn't her skill then or her dedication. It was this random act.
Finding a worthless object, he told her. Get a black and white passport photo and go register at the Beijing Film Studios office.
So after 4 years of scrubbing toilets and monitoring cans, a lost umbrella launches her career.
The irony is profound, isn't it? Her planned self-improvement, the dictionary, it failed. But a random act of kindness regarding a useless object succeeded. As she concludes, she was finally getting closer to the shiny things.
This is where it gets really interesting. She has a foothold now, but she needs security, connection. This brings us to the men who defined her early Beijing years, Xiaolin and Ben.
Right. We first encounter Xiaolin in Fragment 3. He was the assistant to the producer on a Qing Dynasty Imperial Court TV series.
And Fenfang was an extra.
A silent servant girl wearing a heavy fake plate. Xiaolin was a genuine Beijinger, born and bred, rooster sign, 1 year younger than her monkey sign.
A mismatched pair, according to Chinese astrology.
A mismatched pair. And their courtship began with this clear transaction of class and status, all signaled by food.
The lunchbox.
He gave her the large 8 yuan lunchbox that included fish, usually reserved for the higher status crew, instead of her smaller, cheaper 5 yuan box, a visible sign of his attention.
And his flattery was, well, pretty manipulative.
Very. He told her he hated the hierarchy, that the extras were the best people because they were real, and he sealed the deal by saying, "You don't look like an actress, you're not snooty enough."
Which is an insult and a compliment at the same time.
Exactly. And Fenfang, trying desperately to escape her sweet potato roots, is initially offended, but Xiaolin offered her a different kind of commodity, Beijing pedigree and the illusion of stable belonging.
They exchange ages, which isn't just small talk in this context.
No, it's a profound cultural tradition in China. You ask age not just for social ranking, but to understand what shared political and historical moments define their collective memory.
Like the one-child policy or Tiananmen Square.
Right. They were trying to establish their generational bond, but she realizes they came from fundamentally different worlds. Xiaolin, having never left Beijing, just couldn't fathom why she would voluntarily abandon her home.
He saw the city as a given. She saw it as a hard-won prize.
And the failure of the romance is almost immediate, foretold by the landscape itself. Their first date was a trip to a reservoir he claimed was once a Yuan emperor's garden.
Implying grandeur and history.
Which turned out to be a boring little hill with a murky little pond.
And he swims, but she can't.
He jumps in, swims effortlessly, ignoring her when she says she's terrified of water.
Oh.
She puts her foot in, loses her balance, and nearly drowns. It's a powerful, symbolic moment.
It confirms their incompatibility.
Right there. She thought, in that moment, I thought that I would never learn how to swim if I stayed with him. She immediately frames it as fate. Sometimes you just know these things. It's fate.
She sees the water, the symbol of her escape, as now being controlled by him, threatening to pull her under.
A huge red flag. But despite that, she seeks his stability and moves in. And the domestic situation, described in Fragment 8, was, well, intensely suffocating.
How bad was it?
3 generations, 7 humans, 2 cats, and a dog, all sleeping and coughing in the one bedroom.
Wow.
And their constant staple food was rice or noodles mixed with the cheap, ubiquitous 8 Dragons soy sauce. Fenfang lasted 3 years, but the atmosphere was physically and psychologically draining.
She felt like she was back with the sweet potatoes.
Back with the rotten sweet potatoes. She had traded rural stagnation for urban suffocation.
And the end of the relationship was violent.
Deeply and symbolically violent, chronicled in Fragment 8. Xiaolin, feeling abandoned by her growing focus on her career, entered this systematic process of destruction. He wasn't just destroying her belongings, he was trying to erase her new, chosen identity.
Tearing up her scripts, her photos.
Mangling her photos of Beijing landmarks, burning her address book, and his parting threat just shows the full extent of his psychological damage.
It's a desire for shared failure.
A toxic desire. I am not going to let you have a new life. You will not be happy. I'm not happy, so you won't be happy. We'll be destroyed together.
And the climax of this is him throwing a chair.
A green canvas director's chair. He throws it at the light fixture, showering the room with glass. Fenfang spent days painstakingly crawling around, cleaning it up, finding shards lodged in her feet.
That physical pain, the glass embedded in her, becomes this recurring motif.
It's the physical cost of her ambition right there.
So she needed an absolute counterpoint, and she finds it in Ben, the distant Western body.
Biden, the white American student from Boston. Fenfang introduces him with clinical precision. Latitude 42 degrees north, longitude 71 degrees west.
And he brings her a lily.
A shaking 2-leaf scarlet lily, a fragile romantic gesture to her new apartment on the Chinese rose garden estate.
Xiaolin hated him. saw him as a capitalist threat.
Accused him of pretending to be a student, but actually storing up information on the Chinese so that he could go and work for some East Coast American corporation and telling them how to exploit us. Just pure paranoia.
But Fenfang's new apartment, her fresh start, it had a problem.
It was Mecca for cockroaches. And the fate of Ben's Lily is perhaps the most defining metaphor for their relationship. The harsh reality of her new life just consumes his fragile, beautiful gesture.
The cockroaches ate it.
Took them 3 weeks to eat the entire 60-centimeter stem.
And this new environment was also under constant surveillance.
The neighborhood committee, the old cocks and hens with red armbands acting as the eyes and ears of local CCP control.
And their function was systemic control.
Which erupted into a crisis when Ben visited. Fenfang had to warn him not to look at anyone with a red armband, and they had to walk 12 floors.
Because the lift operator was an informant.
The old hen list operator collects information on every person in the building and would immediately suspect prostitution if she saw Fenfang with a foreign man.
It's a life of constant performance and evasion.
Which leads to the police raid, detailed in Fragment 5. Swift and authoritarian. They accused her of illegal renting and questioned her about her many friends.
And she's taken to the station.
In a military jeep. And after hours of detention, they ordered her to move out. But the real trauma was the ideological categorization. They labeled her as too individualistic.
So her drive, the very quality that pulled her out of the sweet potato fields, is now officially classified as a threat to the collective.
A threat. And Ben, the distant savior, he couldn't handle this bureaucratic reality. He left her a note saying he had to fly back to Massachusetts to finish his PhD.
And she didn't call him back?
No, the cultural and geographical chasm was just too wide.
We see that gap confirmed later, don't we, in Fragment 13?
Beautifully and tragically, yes. She calls him from a McDonald's, energized by reading Marguerite Duras, and tries to share a powerful quote about preferring her face now that it is ravaged.
But he just can't understand her.
The 18,400-mile distance, the bad connection, the screaming babies in the background. He can't comprehend the genius of Duras. The distance prevents any true comprehension. It's a perfect symbol of their lack of real connection.
And she realizes something core about him, about his Westernness.
She does. Ben's Western body, though physically warm, was emotionally self-sufficient. She reflects that he didn't require much warmth from anybody. His own 37.2 degrees C were sufficient for him.
His spirit slept alone.
Often turning his naked back to her after intimacy. That physical distance of 2 or 3 centimeters felt insurmountable. She ultimately missed Xiaolin's warmth, even though it was chaotic and painful.
Because at least it was connected.
Exactly. She was trading a shared, messy pain for an isolated intellectual coldness.
Her inability to find stability in relationships, it pushes her even harder into self-determination, doesn't it?
It does. This transition leads her toward education as a self-rescue strategy. She was inspired by a Chairman Mao, quote, "We must be excellent at learning."
So she uses all her meager earnings as an extra for re-education.
All of it. To close the knowledge gap with the city kids, she was absolutely determined to transform herself from a provincial peasant into a real Beijinger, a modern and civilized citizen.
And courses she takes are quite a mix.
A bewildering array. There was modern American literature, where she learned to recite Walt Whitman's line, "Have you feared the future would be nothing to you?"
Which is her own fear right there.
Absolutely. She took crazy English, a movement focused on mastering the language by shouting it loudly, aggressively, and publicly.
Then there was wooby typing and driving theory.
Despite having no car and being confused by the sheer scale of Beijing's highways. And wooby typing is a key detail here. It's a complicated mnemonic-heavy system for inputting Chinese characters.
So mastering it is proof of extreme dedication.
And intellectual discipline. A far cry from pressing tin cans.
And all these efforts culminate in a physical, tangible monument to her new identity.
The highly symbolic Chairman Mao drawer in her new apartment, this drawer became the repository of her official self-holding certificates for Wobi, crazy English, driving theory, virus vaccination, TV insurance.
This trail was her new passport.
So crucial that if an earthquake hit, it would be the first thing she saved. These certificates proved she was a useful, modern member of society, allowing her to apply for permanent citizen status, formally drawing a line between her and the temporary immigrant workers.
And this pursuit of intellectual citizenship leads her toward her true calling, writing.
Yes, heavily influenced by her friendship with Huizi, introduced in Fragments 6 and 10.
Who is Huizi?
A scriptwriter, described as having the collected, private air of a Buddhist monk. He makes his money writing commercial TV, but reserves his heart for brilliant artistic films that always get stuck in the censors.
And he's fixated on a tragic poet.
Cha Haisheng. He committed suicide in 1989 at age 25, tying himself to a train track near the Great Wall. This poet represents the death of pure, non-commercialized Chinese art in the face of rampant modernization.
And there's a detail about his death that really resonates with Fenfang.
The post-mortem finding. Cha Haisheng's final meal was only half an orange. That single piece of fruit symbolized purity and profound emotional poverty. Fenfang saw the poet as having soul, contrasting sharply with her own life, which she still viewed as being like a worm's and useless.
So Huizi becomes her literary mentor.
He does. In Fragment 10, after she experiences this crushing disappointment, a director is a no-show because his investor was murdered. Huizi pushes her. He knows she needs a new direction.
And he quotes Tennessee Williams.
He does. Don't maul, don't suffer, don't groan till the first draft is finished. And Fenfang is immediately captivated by the concepts associated with Williams' desire and tornadoes. She sees American drama as offering this grand, explosive emotion that had been so suppressed in her life.
But this romantic view of Western art is complicated almost immediately.
By Patton, Ben's cynical American flatmate and a fellow film writer.
And Patton has this theory of relativity and dependence.
A concept born of his boredom, grappling with the perpetual struggle between the freedom of being alone and the confinement of a relationship.
But the moment that shatters Fenfang's romanticism is when she asks Patton about Tennessee Williams.
He just brutally replaces the image of Southern Gothic tragedy with grubby reality, revealing Williams was an alcoholic who died by choking on a bottle top.
An undignified, pathetic end.
It contrasts so sharply with the pure, tragic death of Cha Haisheng and his half an orange.
And this cynicism leads to a fascinating culture clash over the purpose of cinema itself.
It does. Fenfang defends Chinese movie-watching habits, describing it as just the same as going to the market to buy cabbages. It's transactional, social, functional.
Whereas Patton insists Americans take it far too seriously.
Like going to church. It should be quiet, reverent, and individual experience.
And this is hilariously underscored by her missing the twist in The Sixth Sense.
She believed Bruce Willis was alive all along. Patton was genuinely horrified, suggesting Chinese viewers are terrible movie watchers for chatting on their mobiles during dramatic scenes.
But she defends their social connection.
And he defends the sanctity of the art. It's a perfect little encapsulation of their different worlds.
This cultural clash, though, it fuels Fenfang's own storytelling. She's rejected the romantic ideal and has to integrate her fragmented reality into her writing.
Which brings us to her first script, The 7 Reincarnations of Haoan in Fragment 11. The concept is rooted in her observation of Beijing's disposable economy, watching the nameless, ordinary people on the rapidly demolishing streets.
And her protagonist, Haoan, is deliberately unmemorable.
A grain of sand in the gutter, with a vague past and no special skills. The story is an attempt to chronicle the undocumented history of the city's migrant working class.
Tracing his 7 different low-status jobs.
An endless, exhausting cycle of professional anonymity. He's a driving instructor, a stamp seller, a VCD pirater, a tie-dyed shirt seller, a doorman, a hot pot vendor.
Each job is temporary, transactional, and ultimately meaningless to his identity.
Right. And running parallel is his doomed, distant relationship with Lili, the Bloody Mary woman. They are constantly just missing each other.
And Lili represents the female vulnerability in this system.
Definitely. She wore his tie-dyed shirt, she slept in his room for refuge, and eventually Haoan finds her body after she is murdered and dumped in a drain. This story is Fenfang externalizing her own fear of being disposable and forgotten.
So she takes this raw, powerful reflection of modern Beijing to the film market. And the rejections are pretty brutal.
Instantaneous and crushingly cynical. The first comes from the second-rate director, the man with the yellow umbrella.
I won't even let her finish pitching.
Not even close. He rejects it because it lacks a moral or uplifting message. It failed to mention a suitable national holiday like Red Army Day. He called Haoan's story a donkey, too humble, not modern enough to attract stars.
The message is clear. The industry demands ideological or commercial packaging, not truthful observation.
And that cynicism is magnified exponentially in Fragment 18 when Huizi sets up a meeting with producer Jin Gi-kwan.
Comrade loaded with gold.
A man whose surname means gold. He is the epitome of the new, greasy, self-made elite. He'd worked in the fields for 30 years before getting rich, and now managed the anti-piracy group.
The hypocrisy is just Staggering.
It's a magnificent contradiction. He had a swollen face and sticking out teeth and never looked straight at Fenfang because she wasn't a man.
And he dismisses her aspirations immediately.
Declares that women can't write and extols the virtues of cheap tabloids like the Police Review for providing true stories ready for commercial adaptation. Then he just hijacks the meeting, droning on about his own life.
Using his anecdotes to put her in her place.
Exactly. First, he boasts about lining up 8 girls for a job, like choosing myself a concubine, an explicit display of misogynistic power.
And his second story is even more chillingly personal.
It is. He recounts his middle school love, the class prefect Liakin, a giant who criticized his dirty, dirty thoughts. Decades later, he finds her fat and desperate, selling pig's trotters, fawning over his BMW. He uses her failure to justify his own success.
And Fenfang is just disillusioned.
Profoundly. She felt like she had aged 5 years listening to him. And his guiding philosophy captured the cruel fatalism of the market. Life is just like those stewed pig's trotters. Sometimes you just have to eat what you're given.
Just accept the disgusting, forced meal.
But this absolute low point, paradoxically, it leads to her first professional success.
Right. In Fragment 19, she's completely broke.
The sugar tin in her apartment has only 2 dead, starved cockroaches. She has 25 yuan left for survival.
Or the phone rings.
It's an underground director who heard about Haoan, a frustrated mainstream artist turned anti-state who sees the 7 reincarnations as perfect, material intriguing, and authentically countercultural.
But the physical reality of Beijing fights her all the way to the meeting.
All the way. She's already feverish from sand in the air sickness. The sand concentration was an apocalyptic 1,012 milligrams per cubic meter that day, and she gets hopelessly lost, confusing the Jiangsu Hotel with the much shabbier Jiangsu Motel.
And this brutal struggle leads to her Sisyphus realization.
That Beijing never showed its gentle side. It is a city for Sisyphus. You push the stone, but it's bound to roll back on you. The struggle is the only constant.
But she makes it, and she sells the script.
She sells Haoan's Destiny for 5,000 yuan, a success born of her despair, and the director, seeing her feverish state, remarks that she has the red face and hot hands necessary to play Li Li, the Bloody Mary woman.
So her personal struggle, her pain, it translated directly into the very cinematic quality he was looking for.
She professionalized her fragmentation.
Now we come to Fenfang's final reckoning, starting with her return home in Fragment 15. She sold a script, but she's still poor and anonymous.
She's failed the promise she made to herself years ago to return rich and famous. She goes back for New Year's Day to her village, now superficially transformed into Great Ginger Township.
And her parents have bought a new TV.
A modern, future brand TV set, a symbol of their participation in the new Chinese dream, so Fenfang could watch her movies. And this gesture of pride, this expectation, it just makes her heart heavy.
She notices her father is shrinking.
A symbol of the traditional world fading away. She endures the family meal, the familiar silence, eating endless longevity noodles, which are traditionally believed to bring fertility and good fortune.
The traditional expectation she has entirely rejected.
And she's forced to lie about her career, claiming her movies were only on obscure cable channels that her parents couldn't access. The village tries to pull her back, not with force, but with love and expectation.
But the core of the village hasn't really changed.
Not at all. The old man still coughs twice and spits once. And her beloved river, the catalyst for her original escape, is now a polluted trickle filled with rubbish and sewage from a nearby factory.
The natural world that inspired her is now poisoned by the modernization she sought.
And this visit confirms her decision to leave Beijing for good. But paradoxically, because she realizes she misses the city's cruelty.
She misses the insecurity.
The sharp edges. She fears the village will pull her back and shrink her will to survive. The city's danger is preferable to the village's suffocation.
Which brings us to the final resolution, her ultimate goodbye to the city in Fragment 20.
She packs up 10 years of her life into 12 boxes. The storage number she will receive for these boxes will be her digit home. This move signifies her acceptance of fragmentation. She has no need for permanent roots.
And her future is entirely self-determined and abstract.
She plans to travel, maybe to Yunnan or Mongolia, but her immediate goal is intellectual. To read Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire, to understand the full scope of that chaotic American desire.
And she explicitly rejects domesticity.
She states she wants to find the shiny things by herself, independent of the warmth of a 37.2 degrees Celsius.
37.2 degrees Celsius, the perfect normal human body temperature.
the symbol of self-contained, adequate physical affection she realized Ben possessed. And she realized she didn't need or want that kind of safe isolation. She prefers the uncertainty of her own emotional temperature.
Her final goodbye is to Huizi.
At Jazia, one of the last old bars remaining on Salatin Bar Street, another piece of old Beijing disappearing. Huizi, profoundly sad, orders 6 gold tequilas and performs the salt limon ritual, creating this line of glistening watermarks on the table.
And she asks him how he can be so at peace.
Steady as a stone in a forest, while she's nervous and desperate.
And he gives her his philosophy and finally his confession.
He tells her, I used to love you, and now I still love you, holding her hand for the first and last time. It's a strong, warm, fleshy hand, a moment of true, connected human warmth that she is choosing to leave behind.
And he gives her a line from Xia Haisheng's poem.
His life philosophy. Name each river, name each mountain. Stranger, take my warmest blessings. It's an instruction to recognize and catalog the world and to bless the journey.
And his final directive is simple.
Universal and profound. Fenfang, you must take care of your life.
So she buys a one-way ticket to Shantou to smell the South China Sea.
Finally internalizing the lesson, the episode ends with her repeating Huizi's words back to her 17-year-old self, the desperate girl standing on the verge of escape. Fenfang, you must take care of your life. So what does this entire fragmented journey mean for you, the listener? Fenfang's trajectory is. It's the ultimate expression of radical self-determination against a background of massive societal upheaval.
She spent years pursuing external validation, didn't she? Whether it was through those bureaucratic passports like the Wubi certificates or the affection of men like Xiaolin or Ben.
But ultimately, she found power in her own fragmented narrative. She professionalized her pain by selling Haoyan's story.
And her final act of departure, moving into a digitized warehouse number, is pure self-determination. It prioritizes an abstract literary future over domestic security.
And the cost of this journey is constantly recorded in her body. We hear about the headaches, the aching appendix, the period pains, the cuts from Xiaolin's glass, the sandstorm fever.
This perpetual physical trouble is the true counterpoint to her emotional landscape.
And Fenfang herself admits that sometimes she would rather look back if it meant that I could feel something in my heart, even something sad. Sadness was better than emptiness.
Her body is constantly absorbing the cruelty of the city, the sand, the pollution, the violence, even when her emotions have learned to shut down.
And that leads to the ultimate trade-off, the final provocative thought we want to leave with you. Fenfang, in her search for shiny things, ultimately rejected the physical warmth of Ben and Xiaolin, the 37.2 degrees C man in favor of 2 dead writers, Xia Haisheng and Tennessee Williams.
She defines her future not by finding love or a stable career, but by a warehouse storage number, and by the lessons learned from others' fragmented, artistic, and often disgraceful failures. So what does it mean to build a powerful future based on unromantic, cynical observation of failure and the tragic soul of half an orange? That is a complex, modern challenge worth contemplating.
Indeed. Go forth, find your own shiny things, and always take care of your life.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.